Am I wrong for divorcing my ex-wife because she constantly pressured me for kids and now refusing to play father to her son, even though she insists he still needs me? Hello Reddit I plus here. My name is Martin. I'm 47 now, and if there's one thing I've learned about life, it's this. You can either live a life that's yours, or you can let other people live it for you. I chose the former, though it cost me a marriage, most of my family, and any hope of reconciliation with people I once thought would stand by me. I married my ex-wife, Sylvia, when I was 27 and she was 26. We had met fresh out of university, both working for the same financial consulting firm. At first, things were great. She was ambitious, intelligent, and had this sharp wit that could cut through anyone's nonsense. I admired her deeply, but from the beginning, there was something unspoken sitting between us, the question of children. I never wanted them, not since I was in college. My dream was always to reach a point where I could retire early, travel, live simply, and never feel chained to responsibilities I didn't choose. Kids didn't fit into that dream. Sylvia, on the other hand, wasn't sure in her 20s. Back then, she laughed off the idea of motherhood, saying she wanted freedom as much as I did. I believed her, but people change. When we turned 30, she began dropping little hints. At first, it was innocent. She'd show me photos of her friends' babies, tell me stories about how cute our nieces and nephews were, or joke about practicing for when it was our turn. Then it got more serious. She left a book called The Joy of Fatherhood on my nightstand, with a bookmark placed right in the middle as if daring me to open it. Finally, one evening, I sat her down. "Do you want kids, Sylvia?" I asked. She hesitated for a long time, then admitted that yes. Over the years, the idea had grown on her. She wanted a family. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just sat there with this hollow feeling in my chest, because I knew, at that very moment, neither of us was going to budge. I wasn't going to suddenly change my life's course, and she wasn't going to abandon her desire for motherhood. So I did the hardest thing I could think of. I told her we should divorce. She cried, begged me to reconsider, even tried bargaining. "Maybe just one, Martin. You'll change your mind once you hold your baby." But I knew that was a gamble that would ruin both of us. If I forced myself into fatherhood, resentment would fester. If she gave up motherhood, she would hate me for it. We spent nearly 2 years dragging through a messy divorce. She didn't want it. I did. I thought I was doing her a kindness by letting her go find someone who shared her dream, but she saw it as betrayal. For years after, I dated casually, but no one stuck. Until 4 years ago, when I met Helena. She was unlike anyone I'd met, calm where I was restless, practical where I was idealistic, yet still wild enough to share my dream of traveling, living light, and never being bound by traditional expectations. She never wanted kids either, which felt like a miracle to me. I thought Sylvia had moved on, but last year, she reached out, asking if we could meet for coffee. Helena encouraged me, saying it might be good to close old wounds, so I agreed. When we met, Sylvia looked older, tired but still holding herself with that sharp edge I remembered. She told me about her struggles, how she hadn't remarried but she did have a son. The father wasn't in the picture. She lit up when she talked about her boy. I smiled, genuinely glad she'd gotten what she wanted in life. Then she asked me if I would consider being part of his life. "He needs a stable male figure," she said. "And you were always so responsible, Martin." I froze. I told her no, as gently as I could, that I was happy for her, but I wasn't interested. That's when she shifted gears, talking about us getting back together, being a family. I reminded her I was engaged, and that ship had long sailed. When she started insulting Helena, calling her selfish, saying she was only with me for money, I walked out. But it didn't end there. Sylvia started messaging me non-stop, so I blocked her. Days later, she somehow got Helena's number and called, accusing me of cheating with her during our coffee meeting. Luckily, Helena laughed it off and blocked her too. Then came my sister, Janet. She stormed over to Helena's house, kids in tow, demanding to be let inside. Helena didn't want to, but it was cold and the children had no coats. So she let them in, made coffee, and prepared for whatever storm was about to hit. Janet wasted no time. She told Helena that if she truly cared for me, she'd leave me, that my true family was with Sylvia and her son, and that Helena was just a distraction. She even went as far as saying that my money, would be used more righteously if I returned to Sylvia and her child. Helena laughed in her face. When I found out, I called Janet immediately. I told her she was delusional, that Sylvia's child wasn't mine and never would be, and that Helena was my future. Janet claimed she was protecting me, that I was under Helena's spell, and that I couldn't see what was best for myself. That was the last straw. I cut ties. With Janet, with Sylvia, and with every so-called friend or family member who sided with them. My phone has been quieter than ever, but honestly, it feels like freedom. People can call me selfish. They can say I should have compromised, that I robbed Sylvia of her chance at a proper family. But I don't regret my choices. Children aren't something you compromise on. If you want them, you should have them with someone who shares that dream. If you don't, you shouldn't be pressured into it. I refuse to sacrifice my life for someone else's vision, and I refuse to raise a child who isn't mine, simply because others think I owe it to an ex. For once, I chose myself, and looking at Helena, my partner, my equal, my soon-to-be wife, I know I made the right choice. After cutting off my sister, I thought the storm would die down, but I underestimated how stubborn Janet could be. 2 weeks later, she showed up again, this time at my own house. I heard the knock, opened the door, and there she was, arms crossed, jaw tight, like a prosecutor about to deliver her closing argument. "Martin," she started, "I can't believe you're throwing away your real family for that woman." I sighed. "Janet, I'm not doing this again. Helena is my future, Sylvia is my past, and her son? Not my responsibility." Her eyes flashed. "You walked away from Sylvia when she needed you most. Now you're abandoning her child. You're selfish. You think retirement, travel, your so-called freedom," she spat the word like it was poison, "matters more than blood." Something inside me snapped. "Blood?" I said, my voice rising. "That boy isn't my blood. He isn't my child. I didn't bring him into this world. And Sylvia made her choices after I left. Don't put that on me." Janet shook her head, almost pitying me. "You'll regret this. One day, when you're old and alone, you'll wish you'd had a family. You'll wish you'd raised a child who would care for you when no one else does." I took a step closer, lowering my voice so she couldn't mistake my resolve. "I would regret living a lie far more. I would regret forcing myself into a life I never wanted, just to please people who don't have to live it. And if being alone is the cost of staying true to myself, then so be it." Her lips tightened, but she didn't argue further. She turned, muttered something about me being lost, and left. That was the last time I saw her. Helena's strength. That night, Helena curled up next to me on the couch, running her fingers through my hair as I stared blankly at the TV. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I'm fine," I lied. "No, you're not." She tilted my chin so I had to look at her. "You just cut off your sister." "That's not nothing," I exhaled slowly. "I know, but it feels like the only way forward. I've spent my whole life trying to please people. First Sylvia, then Janet. If I keep bending, I'll break. And I can't afford to break. Not now. Not with us." Helena smiled faintly. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. You know, I've never met a man so willing to lose everything rather than compromise on his truth. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with you." Her words were a balm. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace, the family divide. But peace came with a price. My phone grew eerily quiet. No more group texts from cousins. No more calls from old friends. Even my parents, who usually stayed neutral, began to distance themselves, saying they didn't want to get involved. It hurt, of course it did. Family isn't supposed to vanish because you won't bend to their expectations. But at the same time, I realized something important. I was no longer living in their shadow. The only voices in my life now were ones I chose to listen to. Looking ahead. One evening, Helena and I sat on the balcony with glasses of wine, the city lights twinkling below. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Do you ever think about what life would have been like if you'd stayed with Sylvia?" I laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Yeah, I think about it all the time. I would have been miserable. She would have resented me. And the kid, God, that poor kid would have grown up with a father who didn't want to be there. That's not love. That's cruelty dressed up as duty." Helena kissed my cheek. "Then you did the right thing. Even if no one else sees it." I wrapped an arm around her and held her close. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by the what-ifs. The noise, the accusations, the manipulation. It all faded against the simple truth that I had chosen my path, and for once, it felt like the right one.